Hello and welcome everyone. If you are new here, my name is Jax and this is a channel where I have been sharing our journey through infertility, IVF, adoption, parenting, and pregnancy, which has spanned over 4 years. And today I am giving a brutally honest review of all of the pregnancy and childbirth books that I have read during that time. I'm going to be going over 3 basic categories of books. The first being your classic week-to-week or month-to-month pregnancy fact books. The next category is all around natural birth books. And the final one is a catch-all for your dad books, your mental health books, and actually my number one favorite pick. So stick around to that category if you want to know my all-time favorite. After 4 years and like 20 books, then you can stick around for that. But otherwise, I will leave the timestamps over here and down in the description below so you can jump around if there's just a certain category that interests you most. And really quick, before we jump in, I just want to put it out there that I'm just some rando on the internet that happens to have accumulated a lot of knowledge around pregnancy and infertility and babies because it has been my life and the focus of this channel for a few years, and I don't mean to disparage anybody who has put the effort and time into writing a book. That is a huge accomplishment, so no matter what my review is, you should always tack on, but it's still impressive that they wrote a book. All right, our first category has 6 books in it, and it is your classic week by week or month by month pregnancy guide type of books where you're supposed to read along with each week or month to know what's going on with baby and you. The first one is the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, Your Pregnancy and Childbirth Month to Month. My first impression of this book was that it was for the busy businesswoman who only does business that stars in those holiday Hallmark romance movies. Like she doesn't have enough time to do a lot of reading because she has too much business to attend to. This book covers everything. Like literally this one book is just like everything from pregnancy to C-section to complications to inductions. It's just everything. And it's in this really big text, like from when you're in grade school and your textbooks are that huge text. And it really provides information kind of one level above what you're getting in apps. So it's not your in-depth, I want to learn everything there is to learn about pregnancy book. It is literally your first-time pregnant woman. You want to know the basics. You don't really care about all the in-depth stuff. You just want to get it done. You want to get a little bit more information. You want to learn the terms, know what's going to happen. Then this book lays it out quick, precise, and in a easy to consume format. The next book up in this category is the quintessential What to Expect When You're Expecting, and it is just okay. It's good basic knowledge. It's kind of one step up from our first book, and it definitely gives you everything you need to know as like a first-time person experiencing pregnancy, but it isn't going super in depth, and the information that's in it isn't laid out in a very, I would say, logical sense. It's not like you're going to be like, oh, I want to learn everything about delivery or induction or nutrition and then like have a category on nutrition. All of the information is kind of scattered throughout the weekly or monthly updates. So you do need to kind of read it from front to back if you want to get all of the good nuggets of information out of it. All right, the next one up in this category is the Mayo Clinic's Guide to a Healthy Pregnancy. And honestly, my review of this one is kind of similar to What to Expect When You're Expecting, except this one has a lot more graphics in it, a lot more pictures and diagrams, which I really like. And especially if you're a more visual learner, then this is probably a good one. Again, information in this is really solid. Obviously, it's coming out of the Mayo Clinic, but it is just that high-level month-to-month guide. Another one where you really need to read it front to back to get all the little pieces of information, but another great resource for a first-time mom. Okay, number 4 is a really good one. This is actually the one that I would recommend if you were only going to buy one book, you didn't want to buy a bunch, you didn't want to read a bunch, and you just want to get the information you need, then this is the one I would recommend. This is I'm Pregnant, a week-by-week conception guide from conception to birth, and this is, I think, the perfect balance between the information you need and not being overly scientific. It's not belaboring the point, but it's getting you the information you need. The layout of this, I feel like, is superior to the other ones as far as being able to look up information. And I love the visuals in this one. Like I said, I think a lot of this information can be made more interesting and augmented by the visuals and the diagrams. And especially if it's a brand new concept to you, then this one is really, really good. I also actually recommend this one for partners as well. Not to spoil the dad book category, but it's disappointing. So this is a good one that maybe you and your partner can read together, or you can read and they can read. Again, if you aren't going to go buy a book for you, a book for him, another 3 books for you, not saying I did that, then this would be a perfect entry point into the pregnancy book kind of category. All right, and now it's time for the big behemoth in this category. This is Pregnancy Day by Day. And as the name implies, this is actually a day-by-day book where each and every day of your pregnancy, they have usually 2 or 3 articles, what's going on with baby, diagrams and pictures to illustrate their point. I kind of call this one the coffee table pregnancy book. I kept it on my dresser and flip it every day to kind of count down the days of pregnancy and get a little tidbit in. If you haven't gathered already, I love information, love reading, and don't mind having a zillion pregnancy books to read. So I really love this one as my kind of start the day, positive affirmation about pregnancy, learn a little something book. That being said, one of the cons of this book is that it is not a great labor and delivery book. In fact, there's a really tiny section on it in the back, but it's obviously meant as a countdown. So if you've counted all the way down, it's a little late to be reading the labor and delivery category. So I do recommend picking up a different book to really read up on labor and delivery. All right, a minor disclaimer before I get into this one, but I am just someone who has read a lot and has been very involved in the pregnancy and infertility and IVF and women's health field for a while now, as I've done research for myself, as I've done research for this channel. I am not a doctor. That being said, I have put in enough effort to be able to properly analyze a scientific study and not just rip off a headline like BuzzFeed does out of an abstract of a scientific study. And I think that is a pretty fair bar to set for a book, that you shouldn't just be reading the abstract of a study, quoting it like it's this end-all be-all fact, and then perpetuating that. Not getting heated. The final book on this countdown, which I do not recommend, is the Mama Natural Week by Week Pregnancy and Childbirth book. Here's why. While there is some good information in this book and some good points to be made, there's also a heavy dose of fear-mongering based on unrealistic expectations of women and the aforementioned over-extrapolation of information from scientific studies that aren't done well enough. And I can't be a proponent of a book that doesn't differentiate really good, solid facts from the ones that came from a study of like 60 people 30 years ago. So I can't get behind it. Next, I also don't like to perpetuate this mentality that everything you do in pregnancy determines whether or not your child's going to succeed in life. A lot of books, including this one, treat pregnancy as if it is this sprint, and if you can just be the perfect pregnant person, your child is guaranteed to be a rocket scientist. And I hate to break it to everyone, eventually you have a baby and then you need to raise them. And that has a much larger impact on how successful your child's life is going to be than whether or not you ate kale during pregnancy, okay? If you want to build a healthier lifestyle for yourself, for your children, good. But if you just look at it as, oh my God, I gotta eat the best I super can during pregnancy, and don't actually build up any healthy habits, you're not gonna pass on healthy habits to your kids, and that's not gonna equal a big impact in their life. So, obviously don't do anything dangerous during pregnancy, but I can't recommend the lifestyle that she is trying to push on pregnant people and guilt them into in this book. Hot take of the day. That concludes the week by week and month by month book category. We're moving on to natural birth stories, so let me grab those books and we'll hop right in. All right, before we jump into this natural birth book section. I just wanted to kind of put it out there. I guess disclaimer number 2, I am hoping to have an unmedicated birth, which is why I have read into these things. Also, I just kind of find it fascinating. I do not have any hostilities towards people that totally want a hospital birth with an epidural. Makes sense. Not knocking it. So I want you guys to know from that perspective, I'm not coming here to preach at you. But I am also coming from the perspective of wanting to learn more about how to achieve an unmedicated natural birth. That being said, a lot of books in this category made me kind of angry, so sorry if I sound a little hostile around some of these books. I just think we can do better. And don't worry, there is better at the end of this, but here, let's just jump in. We'll start with natural birth stories. Okay, The Real Mom's Guide to Empowering Natural Birth. Sure, that's what we're doing here. The bulk of this story is real women's stories around their birth, their natural birth. Really what they mean is unmedicated. And intermixed in there are these sections of facts to help you achieve this. Pros and cons of this book. One of the pros is each of those stories is only 3 to 5 pages long. So if you're looking for some real quick inspiration, some real quick reads, those stories will only take you 5-10 minutes to read. Perfect to do while you're waiting to pick a kid up from school or whatever. Another pro of this book is they do go over the roles of midwives, doulas, and birth centers really well, which is something I think is left out a lot of birth education today. So if you're unfamiliar with those terms or you kind of want to learn more, then at least those topics are covered very well. Cons. I went on a tangent literally a few seconds ago about the harm in misquoting studies, misquoting facts, and putting them into print as if they are the end-all be-all and really true scientifically proven facts. I won't do it again, but this author definitely falls into that trap of reading the abstract of a study, reading a headline, reading one article and being like, that is the truth, and never reading how the study was done or seeing if it was peer-reviewed or done again or proven again, or frankly, in this case, when it was done. She starts quoting facts about the Brazilian C-section rate, which is notoriously high, but she quotes it at 95%, whereas, let's see, today it's around 55%, but I went back and looked at the stats from 2013, which is when this book was published, and it was nowhere near 95%. So, it's things like that that are misleading and generally in line with her fear-mongering around hospital births and modern medical practices, which are not perfect, but we don't need to fear-monger people. We need to inform them so they feel empowered to make their own decisions. Overall, this book just did not give me a vibe of wanting to support women. It felt very much more like fear-mongering or guilting women instead of empowering them to make their own choices. Everything in it was very much biased towards natural birth, which I guess makes sense given that it's a book about that, but not acknowledging the alternatives or the middle ground makes it feel very one-sided. The next book in this category was not what I was expecting at all. It's called Babies Are Not Pizzas, They're Born Not Delivered, and I obviously went into this thinking that it was going to be about natural birth, unmedicated birth, and instead I got a very in-depth and interesting history of midwifery and obstetrics, which I wasn't expecting. So I honestly like this book, but I can't recommend it as like a guide to natural birth because it wasn't. Instead, it goes back almost 100 years and talks about how Black women used to be the primary midwives for everybody in the country because of their deep knowledge in childbirth, and then how obstetrics and physicians kind of overtook it and added a lot of fear and danger and medical processes to it. And it actually goes through the morphology of like how we've gotten to where we are today, which is super interesting because a lot of these natural childbirth books touch on where we are today, what a typical U.S. hospital birth looks like, and don't talk about how we got there. And this did a really good job of filling in the gaps of how we got here, so it makes a lot more sense. It also does a really good job of explaining and giving examples of prejudice in healthcare and solutions on how to be supportive if you're not facing prejudice, but also, again, with that complete history, you understand how we've gotten here, and it gives a much better perspective on how we can correct things. Like I said, super interesting as far as a history lesson. It's definitely like a huge ad for her blog, but she definitely put in the work and did the research for this book, so I don't even mind that it's definitely just an ad for her blog. Overall, a good read, but not my first pick for learning about natural childbirth. Third book in this category is Childbirth Without Fear. And there's a few things you need to know about this book. One, it was written in the 40s by a man, okay? And it has just been revised and polished up since then. Reading a little bit more about this author, he was a complete crazy person for his time, suggesting that, these births didn't need to be so medicalized and episiotomies weren't necessary because they were at a 90% rate, back in this time. And he was completely radical, which in the end was helpful towards women. But this book, it just feels like you're being mansplained to. And I don't want to knock him too hard because obviously he started a movement, but it definitely felt like he was more interested in proving his colleagues wrong than truly empowering women. And I know this is a side effect of the time that this was written, and you can only revise away the inherent social sexism so much, but it just still bled through for me. There are some good concepts in here. But at one point he talks about how women gossiping too much adds to the pain of labor because you're more fearful of it because you hear your friends talk about how awful it is. And while this is a good, solid, proven concept, you can hype something up and make it worse than it actually is and you tense up and everything, just the way he says it is so, those women gossiping around their tea all day, they just don't even know. It rubs me the wrong way. So I appreciate it for what it was. We can do better. Speaking of better, Birth Matters, A Midwife's Manifesta is definitely what I have enjoyed reading the most out in this whole category. And it is the revised modern day version of this. I found it to be the most respectful book in this genre and very responsible with the facts that it laid out, and also interweaving them with her experience. The author of this book has attended hundreds of births, actually has a birthing ranch. Don't freak out about that. But her experience is her traveling the world, actually witnessing birth in a bunch of different cultures, and this book is a culmination of her firsthand learnings and her kind of sharing those experiences. It feels way more like she's just excited to share what she's seen rather than guilting you into going one way or another. Really love the vibes of this book. Intermixed with her own experiences are birth stories from women that have been on her facility where she helps women have natural births, and they are just really calming and peaceful. Her whole tone is really calming and peaceful. And like I said, she's very respectful and responsible with the facts that she puts in this book and making sure that they're explained and given context and not just reduced to a BuzzFeed headline. So this is my number one pick for the natural birth category. Next up is my catch-all category for your dad books, your emotional health books, and my number one pick. So let me go swap out my stack of books and we'll jump in. Let's jump into dad books or partner books. They're all geared towards dads. They're all just assuming that they're catering to a male. And maybe that's the fatal flaw in this whole genre. Because first book, Be Prepared, a practical handbook for new dads. Isn't super practical, I guess. I just got the vibe that it was written by someone who would much rather be watching any sports and drinking a beer. And I guess that's the whole lumberjack vibe they got going on here. It's minimal knowledge about actual pregnancy and labor and childbirth and breastfeeding, all those things that your wife's going to take care of. No, he's going to teach you super valuable things like using your baby as a prop to pick up chicks. Maybe I put unrealistic expectations on this book. Maybe I just haven't had the luck in finding the cache of really great books for partners of pregnant people. But this is more gag gift than informational book. Next up is a book I had much higher hopes for because I've actually had some good luck with the For Dummies series. This is A Dad's Guide to Pregnancy. Again, assuming dad. This is the Dad's Guide for Pregnancy. And I had so much better hopes for this. I actually made my husband stop reading it. Yeah, he was reading it out loud because I like to hear him read at night. I find it very calming. And I actually made him stop reading it because it was doing so much fear-mongering. I just felt at every turn it assumed he was completely inept and completely frightened. At no point did it assume you were coming into this as like a competent adult, I guess. Again, very much flawed in being like, I'm gonna come at this from the viewpoint that you're a sitcom dad who's just overwhelmed by this whole pregnancy business and then try to teach you things. So I can't knock like the facts that are in it, but if every paragraph's like, I know you're probably super overwhelmed, it kind of feels gaslighty, and I can't recommend this either. Those are the only two dad books I read because I got demoralized, I guess, or lost hope in the whole genre. So, like I said before, my top pick for partners is actually the I'm Pregnant book. I thought that one was the most helpful for partners. It was at the right information level to help them know what's going on with their pregnant partner and didn't act like they were condescending and stupid. I just don't like treating dads or partners as if they are somehow inherently inept. So, call me crazy, but if you're looking for a book for your partner that's actually helpful, then I recommend that I'm Pregnant book. Next up are two books that fall in kind of the mental health, emotional health category, which I honestly hadn't picked up until this most recent pregnancy because I was interested to see what they brought to the table. I think mental health is super important, not talked about enough, and definitely during prenatal and postpartum period, it is something that you need to be super vigilant about. So I picked them up, and we'll start with Good Moms Have Scary Thoughts. And essentially on each page of this book, they have kind of a scary thought, and then they go through why it's normal, and they have these little whimsical pictures that are done. So this book is cute and I think well done, and I love the theming of it, but I will save you the time and money of reading this and just say that you are allowed to have complex emotions. You're allowed to love your baby and be frustrated by them. You're allowed to love your new life with baby while also mourning the loss of your life without kids or with only one kid or whatever your previous situation was. It doesn't make you a bad parent in any capacity. And unless you're thinking of harming yourself or harming your baby, in which you do need to seek professional assistance with, you're probably just normal and sleep deprived and hormonal. So it's all okay, and it'll get better. And seek out support from your friends and family and physicians, and you will get through this. There. Saved you $16.99. Next up in this category is kind of the other end of the spectrum as far as seriousness. This is What No One Tells You, a guide to your emotions from pregnancy to motherhood, and it took me about 40 pages to figure out that psychiatrists had written this. It also almost didn't get read because the very first page says, Julie had dreamed for years of becoming a mother. It took months of trying, but finally, here she was, excited, grateful, and a bit nauseated. It took a few months, Julia? It's taken me 4 years. Hush yourself. So I tried to get past that because that's obviously my own personal trigger and they didn't mean to do anything about it. But they also go on to try to be like all-encompassing of people with infertility and IVF and miscarriage and loss, but multiple times they gloss over it. It's like they put that as an asterisk at the end. They don't actually embed it into their writing, so don't really like it. And the final reason I can't recommend this is it definitely left me with more anxieties than I started with. So the structure of this book is it goes topic by topic. And let's see, pregnancy in public, or dealing with your in-laws and being pregnant, or the fantasy versus reality, like all these things that you, complex emotions that are unique to pregnancy and motherhood. And then it tries to go through and explain the problem and explain some possible solutions. But I definitely didn't have half these. And then they brought them to my attention. I'm like, oh my God, should I be worried that I've caused my mom an emotional crisis because now she's a grandmother? Did I do that? In summary, they are trying to give you one-on-one therapy care without giving you one-on-one therapy care, but it just ended up giving me more anxieties. I'm a huge proponent of therapists, love my therapist, but I would recommend, if you feel like you have a severe enough emotional need and mental health need, then getting a therapist and not relying on this book, or getting a book that's more specific to your own anxieties. This general smattering of anxieties just led to more anxieties. Whereas if I had a very specific anxiety and read a book about that, that might have been way more helpful than this. Okay, I've chatted a long time about a lot of books, and some of it has not been all that positive, and you definitely by now know my opinion on offering up your opinion in a book instead of facts, and how I'm not super for it. Instead, I really enjoy being given facts so I can get to my own decision based on those facts and based on the other factors in my life that obviously the author isn't privy to. And I think the book that does that best is Expecting Better by Emily Oster. And she has another book about parenting, as well as another one about parenting a little older kids that's on its way out. It should be released soon. And this book is wonderful in laying out the facts. Her little tagline is why the conventional pregnancy wisdom is wrong and what you really need to know. And she is a statistician who has gone through, gathered all the studies on all of the big pregnancy topics, like drinking during pregnancy, what you eat, sleeping on your left side, just prenatal yoga and medicine and weight gain and all of these things that you hear to do or don't do during pregnancy. She has gathered the facts and laid out the actual risks, the actual benefits, and explains that. Instead of explaining what you do, she explains what the facts are so that you can make your own decision. She does talk about what she decided to do in her own pregnancy and why, but it doesn't feel like she's pushing you in any one direction. So this is my favorite pregnancy book. Definitely after you learn the basic facts of pregnancy, if you're still looking for more information, or you feel like you are a little bit gypped by being just told don't eat deli meat, and you want to actually know why and what the risks are, then here's your next step to really understanding and taking control of your pregnancy rather than being controlled during it. Like I said, she goes through everything from diet and exercise to labor and delivery and the direct aftermath of delivery. And in her follow-up book, Crib Sheet, she goes through all of those newborn tests and medications and things like that. If you're interested in reading the studies behind that, synthesized in a really consumable way. You do not need to be a statistician or a scientist to understand what she's writing. That was her job. She made it digestible so that the rest of us can get that information. Thank you for sticking with me through this very long video. I hope this has been helpful in some way to you. If you're interested in following my own personal pregnancy journey, then feel free to hit subscribe below. And until next time, ladies, keep on fighting. Mwah.